We are live.
Approaching all set.
We are live and we're back dealing with some amendments to H 227, the Probate Uniform Power of Attorney Act. So Eric, do you want to walk us through the amendments that we have so far? And then I'll remind everybody we have an agreement that on Tuesday, April 17th, which is Patriots Day, when it's celebrated, the day of the marathon, on the 18th, we will take this up again and hopefully vote it out. And if people have any more amendments, they need to get them to Eric as soon as possible. So, but we're going to go through these amendments right now.
Yes, thank you, Senator Susan. Good morning, everybody. It's Eric Fitzpatrick with the Office of Legislative Counsel, here to talk with the committee about some proposed amendments to H 227, Vermont Uniform Power of Attorney Act. I know you have the hard copy in front of you. That's only actually a portion of the amendments, because the rest are still being, as you know, I was just speaking with Attorney Mark Langen on the phone. A couple of these haven't been written yet, at least not in formalized language. And I'm going to try and go through them in order. I think that's going to be the easiest way. And so is everybody, in addition to the hard copy of the amendment that Peggy just handed out, do folks also have the as passed by House versions?
Some of us don't. We didn't, I got it. Some of us are doing it online.
Online is fine too. I mean, either way, just so you could look at it.
Both are posted. I just need to get back there. I was looking at the
So we're striking out section 3 in its entirety.
And where does that, that's the one that starts on
That's
page
on page
50.
50.
Okay.
Am I correct on that? Subchapter 3, or is it just?
We're going to strike it and replace it. Exactly. Exactly right, Senator Sears. Before we even get to that, if you don't mind, just to keep it in order so we don't lose sight of anything, or at least I don't lose sight of anything. More accurate. Does everyone have? Can we start with the as passed by House version?
Yep.
All right. So the first change. So I'll go through in order, and I may go back and forth to the amendment that I handed out as well, but let's just see which makes the most sense. But it's on your as passed by House version. The first change is going to be on page 20. It's very only a couple of words, but an important one just for accuracy of the cross-reference. So is it on page 20, the very bottom of the page?
Liability for refusal to accept.
Exactly. And all it is in fact, the very last line says, and this is talking about what is the statutory form that's being referred to. And it says it's the form provided in section 4051. They're going to add or 4052, because there's actually, you may remember this from Attorney Langen's presentation, there's two forms. There's the regular statutory form, power of attorney, and there's the real estate short form. So the statutory form definition could be referring to either one of them. So that's for accuracy that we'd have them both referenced there. So that's the first one. A couple of pages later, over to page 24. Now these are, you'll see sort of about 3/4, almost 80% of the way down page 24. You'll see it goes up to, there's 11 numbered subdivisions there. Yep. It goes up to number 11. There's going to be a new 12. So that's going to be the second change. And that 12 is going to be a reference to, and then, first of all, what are these 12 things? These are, and you remember Attorney Langen was explaining this point as well. These are abilities, authorities in the power of attorney that have to be specifically enumerated. And if they're not, then the principal does not have that. Remember, because there's
That's
also
where
a
you
section.
get the pick all of the above.
Actually, no, that's the previous part.
Oh.
You could, these ones, I suppose, in theory, though, one could do that. One could just pick all the above. That's just a good question. I'm gonna fast forward and see if that form does say.
54.
Yeah, exactly. Nope, this one actually is not the all the above one, although I suppose in theory one could. But so the general powers that are sort of, generally come with the POA, that's what the all of the above one referred to. These are specific ones that if you don't say it, that principle doesn't have it.
Right.
So you got to check each one, or maybe you don't want to check each one. Maybe you only want to check two. But if you don't check it, they don't have that authority. And so one of them that's being added to this list, the new number 12 of the things that have to be checked in order for the principal to have the authority to work in that area, is this enhanced life estate deeds. They call them ELEDs. And that is, I think it was 2 years ago that the statute was passed.
Reported that, Bill.
It may have been. It was that's the remember, it's the idea that you can as a property owner, a homeowner, say, it's frequently done with parents and children. You transfer as a parent, just to use an example, the ability of you transfer ownership of the property to your child, but it doesn't transfer until you die.
Yeah, I did that
Yeah.
with my mom.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And they call it's called a life estate because the adult or the parent has during the course of their life, retains the ability to live in and have other sorts of authorities with respect to the property. And, but then it automatically transfers to the child when the parent dies. So you don't have to go through probate.
It was a memorable report because I actually remember it.
One of those tools to avoid probate, as we've heard, is what you should do.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So this is the concern brought up by Attorney Joe Bauer. Well, one of them was that because he was you may recall, one of the instrumental figures back when you passed that ELED bill, he was one of the persons advocating for it. So he was.
Honestly, I don't recall that. Maybe it's.
Right. So he was pointing out, should there be a reference to those as well? And so that's why it's being added here to specifically say that, okay, if the person who's giving the power of attorney to an agent wants the agent to be able to create one of those kind of deeds, one of those enhanced life estate deeds, they can do so as long as they check the box, add it to the list. And this is, it's got to do it in two places. One place will be right here on page 24. That's the substantive language that's going to say they can do that. And then if you turn to page, I think Senator Norris was pointing this out, you turn to page 55.
55?
55, yeah. And you see that not only on page 55, but on page 54 also, all these items with a checkbox in front of them, we got to add one. You have to add one to parallel what we just said. It has to be an ELED, an enhanced life estate deed checkbox, because that's the form. The first piece we just looked at on page 24 is the substance of the statute. It says, okay, you can do this too. And you also want to have it in the form so that people can check it if they want. And that'll be page 55. Language to be drafted. But that's where it'll be.
It doesn't sound that complicated.
Right, I think it's pretty straightforward. So that's it for this document. So those are the ones those are not yet in the other amendments. So ultimately we'll incorporate those pieces with this amendment.
Are you going to do a strike all?
I was going to ask you that, Senator Sears, exactly.
Well,
Insert,
strike calls are easier on the floor of the Senate
yeah,
than that, but sometimes it's confusing for the other body when we make a few changes and the bill is so technical in nature. But I think strike calls, my preference is strike calls because you can do a side by side and show them these are the differences.
right. Yes, and there's another reason that
It's easier to report on the floor.
Yeah,
When you have a strike call.
absolutely. And another reason that that's a good choice, I think, was that I was noting that See, both of these forms are gonna have, because there's changes to the forms, and the forms are very lengthy.
Yep.
And there would have been no way, you would have had to strike that entire section, which is 15 pages long anyway, and replace it even if you were doing instances of amendments. So if you're gonna do that on the instance of amendment that's that long, you might as well do it straight. So speaking of the form, those are the changes that are made in the separate document, the other amendment that Peggy passed out. Those are all to the, well, you saw one change to the form, the one we just mentioned, the one about the enhanced life estate deeds. That's the long form of the full power of attorney. There's also a separate section, which is in the other amendment, that deals with this short form. And that's specifically for powers of attorney for real estate transactions. In other words, you're authorizing another person to make a real estate transaction on your behalf. And this is another couple of suggestions that Attorney Bauer had come up with. In particular, one you'll see that's the same in several different places, was he was saying that it's not so clear here that this could also apply to a gift, not just a real estate sale or a mortgage or something of that nature, but someone might gift real estate to another person. He wanted it to be clear, suggested that it would make sense for it to be clear that this would apply to a gift also. So you see that on the first page, just adding the word gift. It should be highlighted in your versions. And if you look at page 2, similar, there's two things out here. This is, well, what power is being given for the agent to exercise on behalf of the principal? What types of power with respect to real estate? Similar here, you see, it had said sale, purchase, refinance. Attorney Bauer mentioned, first of all, gift, same concept, wants to have that. And also this idea that mortgage also, some might argue, well, that really could be in some instances encompassed within the idea
Well,
of
I guess I'm
finance.
asking how that's a gift. I gift you my mortgage.
No, oh, that would be separate. That's a separate one.
I
You're
don't know
right.
if that's a gift I want.
Okay, it's not a gift.
Right, right.
The agent is.
Do I have to accept
I'm
that
not giving
gift?
you my mortgage.
Right.
I'm making
right.
you responsible for my mortgage.
Right. No, you're right. So the gift would not be of a mortgage itself, as you say, that would not be very generous. So those are two separate things that are being added. So if you look at page 2, they would have the authority to do a mortgage on behalf of the principal and separately do a gift of real estate on behalf of the principal. So just two separate real estate related authorities that weren't itemized specifically in the previous draft. So I'm stuck in this another gift piece somewhere. Oh, yeah,
So Eric,
yeah,
I'm jumping down a little bit. but
yep,
Under power to delegate,
right,
it says the agent appointed in this power of attorney may delegate the authority to act to another person.
mhm,
It shall be executed in the same manner. I'm taking it, that means you have to have the initial person's signature.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So the person who's the agent couldn't delegate without the original person's permission.
Exactly,
Right.
right, yep. And it's sort of another another change to that section specifically. And also, I think it's sort of a similar theme in the sense that it's making sure that this isn't done without the knowledge and consent of the person. And this is something that Attorney Langen just mentioned to me as we were chatting on the phone. So if you look down to the self-dealing provision, you'll see that the very first few words, well, first of all, there's a box to check, right? And then it says, if this box is checked. In other words, that doesn't apply unless somebody checks the box. People in the real estate bar are mentioning you should have that same provision in what you just mentioned, Senator Booth, in this power to delegate so that it doesn't happen unless somebody's aware of it, checks it. So you would repeat, very top of page 3, in other words, where it starts to say capital E, each agent appointed in this power of attorney. Before that, there'd be a checkbox
And it would say if this box.
if this box is checked.
Okay.
Exactly. And then lastly, for this document, the
It's such a funny term, self-dealing.
yeah, it's a legal term exactly that sort of refer, it's almost like.
Solitaire.
It's a good analogy. Yes, it's like doing a transaction that could benefit yourself.
Like, Trump was accused of self-dealing constantly because he was always moving things to his Trump properties, and then having the government pay for them. So
Right.
He's a very generous individual.
very generous.
He gave the doorman $30,000. That was very generous. Not many have tipped doormen for 30,000.
Maybe I need to go into a different line of work if that's what doormen are getting tipped.
Only if they have potentially incriminating information.
Fair point.
Oh, I don't think he said no. Just gave him 30,000.
We all know he's always very honest.
Anyway, I digress. We're talking about self-dealing.
Yes, and within that self-dealing paragraph, there are a couple of changes there too. So it says, if this box is checked, the agent named as power of attorney may convey the subject real estate to the agent. So you see that means self-right. In other words, if they check that person, the agent can convey the real estate to themselves. So they're allowing, if they check it, they would be allowing the agent to act. That's what it means by self-dealing to their own benefit, right? And obviously that wouldn't happen unless they check it, unless they know that they're consciously, intentionally deciding that they want the agent to be able to make that transaction. And so the Attorney Gower wanted to add right before the after subject real estate would read with or without consideration. And that again is incorporating the concept of the gift. In other words, it doesn't have to be a sale, could be a gift, could gift it. That means without, that's in legal terms. Consideration is what you provide in exchange for something. So if it's without consideration, you don't have to pay, or if I pay $5 for my book, and the $5 is the consideration for me giving you the book. But if I'm giving it to you without consideration, that means I'm gifting it to you. Here's my book, you don't have to pay me. So without consideration means you can gift it. It's a legal term for it. And lastly, striking the words as co-tenants. In other words, it could be, that's a specific type of co-property ownership with another person. And by striking those words, you're just permitting the property to be owned with another person in any other fashion as well. And those were both suggestions from Attorney Bauer that Attorney Langen looked at and was also okay with.
Good.
Lastly, this is not, so that's the end of what's in this document. Last amendment, which will be added, is also an amendment. And I think you may recall Attorney Langen mentioned it during his testimony, that it has to do with the Uniform Trust Act. So there's a piece in there that needs to be amended so that it's now consistent with the new Uniform Power of Attorney Act. Now, we don't have the language in front of you right now, but it's actually, all it is there's no language. It would just be deleting a paragraph in the Uniform Trust Act, which if it remained, would be inconsistent with the new Uniform Power of Attorney Act. So this has to be struck.
I was back to the creating the new checkbox.
Yep.
Top of page 3, at the
Right.
bottom of page 4.
Yep.
Subsection 2 says unless the language expressly forbids delegation, the agent may delegate. So we would need to change that, right?
Yes, that's a good catch. Supposed to forbid delegation.
Right.
So in other words, if it's a checkbox, then you're opting in. This is saying you have to opt out, opt out.
Right, so if you opt in by checking the box.
But it would be in conflict with this because this says you have to specifically
Forbid it,
forbid it.
right.
This feels like something that should probably be an opt-in, not an opt-out.
Yeah,
Which it would be with the checkbox.
But then,
yeah. So if you struck C,
Right,
the final thing.
yeah. Does that make, or Can we ask him? But also the citizens,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Mark, can we ask, did you hear that observation by Senator Baruch that there appears that there may be a conflict between subsection C and making the opt-in provision part of the delegation?
Yes, I believe that we would have to make a change to C.
Yeah. It might be just strike it, right?
I would say, yeah, we could just strike it because now that we're putting in the opt-in or out in the power of the granting to another agent, I think we can just delete C altogether.
Right. Thank you. Great catch.
Even a blind pig finds an acorn.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
So we should be able to wrap this up rather quickly, in 2 weeks or
Yeah,
week and a half.
definitely. Anytime, and next week if you want, whatever
Yeah.
works for you.
Well, we've got a few house bills to take care of. We'll get this one out of the way. I was kind of going over the house bills. Eric, you have a couple of them. One little minor bill regarding implementing mechanisms to reduce suicide, but will start tomorrow.
Yes, I've heard about that.
I think one of the more complex ones, it's always, at least for me, is H-288, which will take up Friday, I think, and I won't be here on Friday. But it's to do with the liability for sale of alcoholic beverages. There are some problems that bar owners are having, and it tries to deal with those.
Oh, is
problems.
this the thing that I kept hearing from Burlington? Like, well, I got a bunch of emails
Yeah.
with like from bar owners in Burlington and Winooski basically saying they couldn't get liability insurance because of
Right.
some weird
Yeah.
Vermont law.
Yeah,
And so
I
they
think
were all
that's
just gonna
what-
close. Okay, so this is that.
That's what.
Amazing.
So we have, that's on Friday morning. And there's also some craziness within that, but if you have bar owners or people who are impacted by it, please, would love to hear from them.
Okay.
So you could let Peggy know when we take it up again. We're not gonna finish it tomorrow, on Friday, but at least,
One of them
it's
was
always good to get your,
126.
Deli 126,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a great little bar. I just went there for the
Deli,
first time this
there's
weekend.
named Karen Jacobs.
Yeah.
there. Should I get that person?
Yeah,
For next time.
because we have scheduled Tom Shearer, well, Tucker Anderson's the ledge counsel.
Yeah.
Tom Shearer is for the Vermont Association for Justice. Amy Spears, Chamber, Kevin Gaffney, Commissioner of Department of Financial Regulation, and Wendy Knight, the Commissioner of Liquor and Lottery. So, we'd probably be advantageous to hear some from the bar owners that are impacted. I haven't heard this from anybody in the Bennington area.
Oh, I got like a flood of dozens of emails about this in the,
Well, it never hurts to have
Fall.
your constituents.
yeah.
So I don't think there's probably a problem in Franklin County either.
There's
Probably
also,
not.
yeah, there's a couple of these,
Or wife.
Chris Carr from the Pickle Barrel and Alex Crothers from Higher Ground.
I did hear from Higher Ground.
But anyway, look, you
Yeah, I'll
you
dig through my
Phil
emails, Peggy.
Okay.
can get a hold of people and
well, Peggy's got the contact info for the main one in Burlington.
Those three, yeah.
Mhm.
but,
They testified in the house.
invite constituents to
Yeah,
testify. Even though we didn't do anything about shoplifting, we got some.
I still get contacted.
Yeah.
The same group of merchants. They're just convinced that if we make the penalties more severe and drop the the amount that triggers them, the problem will be solved. And I'm like, they're already stealing more than that amount.
There's still that.
Well, it takes, okay, well, why don't we, on Friday, we also hopefully do some of the finish up of H89 if we have time. We've got an awful lot of people scheduled, and I don't know if we'll get through all of them. And so,
Well, last now.
yeah, I think we can. I don't think we can talk